your goal is not to, obviously you want transformation, obviously you want results for your clients and things like that, but I feel like you've done a really good job of presenting the results as you're able to walk out of this space and feel like you're more of a whole person who can manage the stresses of life, who can manage what's asked upon you.
Trauma expresses itself like symptomatically very much the same, whether you have a big T trauma or a little T trauma. So a lot of the symptoms I see in the space can look pretty similar. Some of the big things to keep in mind in a trauma-informed practice are like safety, compassion, trust.
It's great just to hear the reinforcement in that, but like honestly, like if you're someone listening to this, there's no like magic pill to that.
Well, welcome, Aimee. We're so glad to have you. For those watching, listening, Aimee's a good friend of mine. We get to lead worship together at our local church here, Sun Valley. Shout out. And so we've been able to become good friends just via, obviously, our profession in fitness outside of the church, but also just getting that experience, just leading music and playing music together. So, really excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Come on now.
I'm pumped.
So, obviously, this show, we talk about how exploring strength and health helps you lead a life of purpose. So, like, this is all about empowering people with tools and kind of helping them reframe things around health and fitness to think about it at a deeper concept, deeper level, and all that stuff. And so I think having people like yourself on who just have such a passion for what you do really helps move that that needle as far as what we stand for. And I think having like-minded people to just bounce ideas on it is really, really helpful. So
sure.
So with that, talk to us a little bit just as we jump in. You're a fitness trainer. You work with clients. You train them. What was it? Your journey? What did your journey look like from start to where you're at today? As far as what ignited that passion for you to start doing what you do?
Yeah. So, I've been an athlete most of my life. Initially, I'd kind of had dreams to be in the fitness, like health world to some degree. Like when I was initially in college 20 years ago, I was going with the intention of being like an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, something along those lines. I played D1 collegiate softball, and a lot of my life was really like stemmed around just athletics. So I had a passion there, but I would say like my passion for fitness and health came later. I've only been a personal trainer, like a professional in the fitness world for just going on 4 years. Previous to this, actually, I was a worship pastor. So I did that for the majority of my adult life. It was at like 35, I just started feeling sort of this restlessness that like something was next, which is crazy because I thought I would work in the church my whole life. Like once I kind of was out of college, and we can jump into a little bit of just like my history and my story and why I didn't end up kind of pursuing those things initially. But I worked in the church for 13 years, and I thought I would do that forever at that point. So when I left, I really actually had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I needed to get out of that job. And so I quit my job without a job, like had nothing.
Wow.
But at that point, I was really passionate about fitness. I had seen the power of just caring for my health and my body, weightlifting in general. And so there was that passion and that outlet. And then I just had a ton of like mentors and friends and people in my life that were like, hey, like you've put a lot of work, into your health and your fitness, and you've really like advocated for this in your own life. Like, what about getting into personal training? So that was kind of the journey into like fitness as a profession. It was after that I was kind of like, I think I could try that out, So then I went and got my certification in personal training through National Academy of Sports Medicine. Started working in a small gym right away. At the same time, I was going through like trauma academies, like different narrative sort of academies and training specific around trauma. About 6 months into like having my certification, working in a gym, I helped grand open a Lifetime. I worked there for a year, which was awesome. I had a great team. I had great leaders. I had just an incredible like staff of fitness professionals that really poured into me and like believed in what I had to bring and offer. And so that was a great experience. I learned a ton in that year. And then we moved out here to Arizona 2 years ago from Chicago area. And it was kind of at that point that I was like, I need to start my own business, which is crazy. Like, if you would have known me years ago, like I was never very driven, but never would have thought like, oh yeah, I'm going to like own my own business and do that. And so yeah, we moved out here. I started my own business and started in an online capacity and then shifted to more like in person. And so now that's what I do. I train out of my garage.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
Very
do you
cool.
feel, because I feel like we share very similar stories in that ministry background and transitioning into the fitness realm where we're helping people. Do you find that a lot of what you were doing previously translates into what you do now? Like with like meeting people where they're at and things like that?
Yeah, I would say, so just a big part of my story and my history, I have a complex trauma history, complex PTSD, just a lot of harm in my story towards my body. I actually, when I was in college, right before I got into school, I developed an eating disorder. And that's kind of what kind of put the halt to just my dreams around initially being in, kind of the health and the wellness field. I wound up in rehab a couple years after that. And, within those next couple years really did find freedom from disordered eating. So then I kind of, found myself like in the church, working in the church. And my heart, even as, a worship pastor, was to like, I wanted to be with people that were hurting. Like my favorite ministry, even still to this day, is like care ministry, Celebrate Recovery. I want to be able to link arms with people that are struggling and hurting and have had harmful, pasts and traumatic like stories and histories. And I want to help walk them to more freedom. And so, yeah, totally like in my previous like role as a worship pastor, it was very much centered around freedom and like helping people find freedom.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool how your story has like come full circle. When you were saying initially, when you were graduating college and you had an eating disorder and that kind of like halted your dreams of pursuing what you're pursuing now. Yeah. And then through your journey and like through the church and through your getting to lead people through worship and like you were just saying, like walk them to freedom. You were called to do that. And then you eventually, your soul was moving again, saying like, okay, there's another layer here. And you stepped away from that and not knowing what you were going to do. Yeah. And then the pieces fall into place to like bring that story full circle where now you get to anchor to that and then help people with exactly what you were working through. Yeah. Right. So that's so cool. It's pain to purpose. Exactly. Right. And that's the story. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really redemptive. What I thought like was a kind of destroyed, like dashed dream, was really like not yet. Yeah. Right. There's some work to do, some preparation, had some healing to be done in my own story. Like so much healing had to be done in my own story so that I can do the work I'm doing with the women I'm doing now, so.
Yeah. We talk a lot about like, you can only lead people where you've gone before. Yep. So in some ways it's like you're in the perfect spot having experienced what you've experienced. It's never, awesome that we go through these traumas and these experiences, but in some ways it's a way to grow and deepen like who we are. And it's really cool to see how you're using that to help propel other people into a better purpose like we talk about here. So yeah, thanks. That's super cool.
Yeah. So you've been a trainer now for about 4 years. Did you started out as a personal trainer. You said that you got your certificate, your personal training certificate through NASM. And you started training people. Yep. When along that journey did you start to link what you do with personal training and fitness and the trauma informed stuff, and like how have you kind of linked that, and when did that happen in your process?
Yeah. So at that time when I was working at Lifetime, I started noticing kind of a trend of the clientele that was coming my way. And even prior to that, like in the church, like the kind of people that I found like gravitating towards me towards them were these people with those kinds of stories. I also have a chronic illness, like disease history. And that actually was a big part of what led me to getting back into fitness, was just being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so getting back into the gym for me was a way, to just kind of take that next step of like caring for my health. But yeah, so a lot of my clientele I saw like had chronic disease, were had really painful histories, and so there just started to be this kind of regular pattern of the people I was in front of. And then when I started my business, I actually hired a business mentor, and we were going through this whole thing, especially in the online space. Like, you got to niche down, like who you're going to focus on, And so I was going through all these different kinds of like worksheets to try and figure out, because honestly at that time I didn't really know. I knew where my heart was, and I knew the people that I kind of loved to help. But it was like through that process of really figuring out like, who does my heart break for, and like thinking about my own story and how weightlifting specifically, like strength training, has been helpful to heal my own body and my own trauma. That's kind of where that came from. And it's super science backed. Like there's actually I wish there were more, but there are a few like trials and studies around weightlifting and trauma and how it's really healing to the body. And so I don't know, honestly, any fitness professionals personally that are doing this work. And so, I just felt like, well, I want to be one of those people that brings that aspect of movement and like in the aspect of like healing trauma to this community in this area, and just be another kind of like advocate and ally for women specifically that have those histories and just need a safe space to heal.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people overlook when it comes to personal training is like the vulnerability that's experienced, especially like, I mean, you do it out of your garage and your home. Like that's a really safe space. Like you just said, you're trying to create that space for people. And I think, initially someone starts out on their fitness journey, maybe it's a little bit of, and your clientele might be a little different as far as what that conversation looks like up front. But I think for you and I, it's probably more, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get in better shape. I want to be able to go on this hike or whatever that looks like, more external, goal oriented. And I think folks don't really recognize, like, as you kind of get into that and you maybe build a relationship with a quality coach, like, that's a really vulnerable space. And there's some stuff that comes out of you that is beyond just, we're sweating, we're working hard. So talk to us a little bit about how, it doesn't have to be a specific, like session scenario, but like, what are some strategies that you use with your clients in that space to create, like you said, that safe space for people to be vulnerable and to have that experience with you?
Yeah. So what I love about weightlifting and what has been studied and proven is that it can actually help to restore our connection to the body, where there's been a disconnect, and improve symptoms of trauma. And so like from my space, let's talk about my space, because what feels safe is so individual to people, right? Like I felt safe working out in Lifetime, right? Like, so working out in kind of your corporate kind of box gym. Some people feel super safe and comfortable and want to be in like a CrossFit or a barbell type gym and find like an immense amount of like community and comfortability there. For me, I decided to open up like my private space for those who are really intimidated and fearful, and maybe even kind of get triggered in one of those other kinds of like gym spaces. And so how I've set up my space has been, from just like a physical standpoint, has been really intentional towards towards women, towards people with trauma histories. So, you know, like neutral coloring, so it's not super like stimulating and distracting. I actually have no mirrors in my gym. Minimal equipment, you know, so more functional, so it just doesn't feel chaotic. It feels organized. It feels clean. Even down to like, hey, my client walks in, do you want music today? Do you not want music? What kind of music do you want? Do you want the fan on? Do you not want the fan on? Do you want the garage open? Do you not want the garage open? And so when it comes to like trauma specifically, some of the big things to keep in mind in a trauma-informed practice are like safety, compassion, you know, trust, choice, voice, and yeah, like, because from somebody who's been through like a traumatic history, choice was taken away from them, right? They felt powerless. They felt like they didn't have a voice. They didn't feel supported. They didn't feel safe. And so I'm constantly like thinking through that in my space of what's going to help my client feel supported, feel like they can trust me. Right. And part of like setting up a space in a way that feels inviting and welcoming and not triggering or intimidating is really important to me. So those are the people I'm looking to like pull into my space, and with the hopes of like, as we do the work in the space, that maybe eventually they'll be able to get to a point where they have the capacity to actually walk into a gym space and not be triggered by it, not be intimidated by it. Now know enough about like working out and movement and equipment that they could walk into a physical gym space and be confident in taking up space there, you know? So that's kind of like the physical aspect of the space. Then outside of making sure, you know, my space is set up well, it's when my clients walk in, one of the first things that I'm asking them is, how do I find you today? You know, physically, emotionally, and oftentimes I can see it. And, you know, I'm constantly reading body language, reading, you know, expression. I'm listening to what is being said, what's not being said, just how I find them, how they show up in the space. Like, that's really important. So of course, like, I come in with a program, you know, and a plan for my client, but part of the whole like choice and voice aspect of it is like, if they walk in, they're seeing the plan ahead of time. Like, I put it in my app. But at any point they have, you know, the agency to be able to say like, hey, I don't think I'm ready for this today, you know, or I'm really feeling like this today. Can we maybe skip, you know, this movement or this thing? I saw it's on the, you know, on the plan for today, but I don't know that I'm in a mental space, you know, to be able to do that. But even during like our workouts, I'm constantly paying attention to what's going on and what's being said. So I know how to help them, you know, like either if it's, we need to regulate, we need to ground, we need to be a little more mindful in our movement, we need to breathe, right? Like, so often I see my clients holding their breath. So like one of the first things I even teach my clients is how to breathe properly, because so much of like those with trauma histories they're bracing for impact, right? They're holding their breath. And so really getting in tune with our body like is so important. And it's the power of a movement-based practice is coming back to the body, you know? So in my space, I'm really giving my clients room to learn to come back to their body, to be present in their body. So much of trauma is like disconnect from body, right? And so we're trying to reconnect with the body to see it as a good thing, right? My body's good. My body's actually signals to me what it needs if I would just like pay attention to it. So it's helping them come into their body, feel safe in their body, feel trust in their body again, where maybe they didn't feel safe or trust in their body, grow in their, you know, capability and their confidence in their body and themselves being able to do hard things, which then increases capacity to do more hard things, not just in the gym, but you know, in real life. And so those are just kind of some of the things that I'm paying attention to and being mindful of, so that I can help my clients have a good relationship with their body and learn to be present in this body that maybe hasn't always felt so good, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. So I love that you're being mindful about, how the space itself presents as they walk in.
Yeah.
So that it feels clean, it feels organized, it feels like inviting.
Yeah.
And then for you, what are some of the techniques that you use for, like you were saying, guiding people back into their body? So that's one thing that I love to focus on with my own coaching is taking the opportunity to get people to feel their body, right? Because people are always asking questions like, should I do more weight? Should I do less weight?
Yeah.
Is this, am I doing this correctly? And I love to just guide them like, okay, well, what are you sensing, right?
Yes.
And like you said, it's such a beautiful opportunity for people to use exercise as a way to connect with something that they've been, ignoring. They've probably been walking around in their head, right, on loop for, who knows how long, days maybe, without even remembering to check in with themselves. So, you work with people that are especially detached from their body, right? So are there levels that you kind of put people through? Do you have like a system that when you're seeing a new client, like how do you kind of ease them into that? Because people can have reactions, right? People can have things come up that they've been ignoring when they start to do that. So as a trauma-informed coach, what does that process kind of look like? Is from taking someone from in their head to in their body?
Yeah. Every person is at a different place,
exactly.
when they come in. Like each individual client has a different story, right? They come in varying levels of being connected or disconnected in their body. And so really it's kind of, like that first session, I always do kind of like a movement assessment to first see, like, how are they moving? We're talking through kind of your typical consultation type stuff that you're going to do with a client initially, getting to know their story, like getting to know where their pain points are, things like that. But when it comes to like connecting with their body, cueing is actually a really powerful tool for learning to be present in the body. Specific to like a trauma-informed space, it's important to maybe have one or two. Like cues don't overwhelm. I don't want to overwhelm my clients with cues. So typically I try to have maybe one internal cue and one external cue. And
what's the difference there?
Yeah. So an external cue is like feeling outside of the body. So I feel, right? Like I feel my quad or my glute contracting, on a squat. An internal cue would be more, like my breath or emotionally, how am I feeling? How does this movement make me feel kind of like internally, when I'm moving through the movement. But yeah, cueing is powerful to just help them even notice, like, where should I be feeling this? How should I be moving my body through space? I don't have mirrors in my space for this reason. There are a few reasons why I don't, but specifically around the idea of my clients learning, kind of that proprioception of learning how to move their body through space and get into their body and not use like a mirror. It's one thing to watch yourself, right, in a mirror squat to parallel. It's another thing to learn how to feel your body squat to parallel, like move through space.
Knowing where that depth is without having to see it.
Right.
Puts you in your body.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so even in those movement assessments, I'm helping them initially gain an understanding of this is what it feels like, to feel your glutes or your quads contract. I teach them like baseline, like this is how you breathe. Like that's one of the first things I teach my clients to do. Breath is so supportive.
So do you lay them down?
Yeah.
Okay, so you start with them laying down.
Yep.
And then what are some of the cues that you're giving them as far as external and internal?
Yeah, so as far as like a breathing would be, to kind of fill, like think about filling your diaphragm or your upper stomach with air as you breathe in through your nose, right? So there's that internal, there's that external cue. Your stomach is raising outwardly, right? And then big exhale out through the mouth, all the way out. So, but it's just teaching them to like be in tune with that breath, because our breath is so important to our movement. So if they don't know how to initially breathe correctly, you know, then
with intention,
then our movement is not going to be as beneficial or even like connected, you know. Like I remember when I first started in the gym, I wasn't super connected to my body. I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know what muscles, you know, I should be feeling, you know, and I was so disconnected in my body that sometimes if somebody would have said, squeeze your quad, I would have been like, oh, I don't know if I'm actually feeling that there. So actually iso holds are a great way to help a client. Like if a client is struggling to feel into their body, that's another thing that—
an isometric.
An isometric,
Where
like
they're
a
just sitting
wall
there,
squat.
Yeah, starting to feel that muscle working over time, and then they can start to really sense and connect to where, what and where they're feeling that.
Yeah. So if I have clients that are really struggling to be in their body, and to feel like what it feels like to squeeze a certain muscle group, we'll focus on like isometric movements to help them get to that point where like, okay, now I feel it.
Yes.
You know, and then, I mean, there's even a lot of studies. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but Peter Levine did some work around like animals in the wild and why they don't get traumatized. And it's because immediately after a traumatic movement, they shake it off. And so there's something powerful about like an isometric hold where your body actually starts shaking. So like sometimes with my women, like if they're starting to get dysregulated or feel a little heightened, or struggle with a movement, I'll ask like, hey, where are you feeling that in your body? And so, yeah, like let's say, you know, it's in their core or something. Okay, why don't we sit and we're actually going to do like a hollow hold, and I'm going to have you hold that until you actually start shaking. And it's amazing how just that shaking actually relieves so much tension and calms the central nervous system down.
So you're saying they're feeling anxious, or you know they're feeling an emotion, and you're asking where in their body they're feeling that.
Yeah.
So they're feeling some sort of tension or some sort of tightness somewhere in their body, and it's related to an emotional experience. And then you're asking them, okay, where in your body do you feel that?
Yeah.
And then let's go after that area of the body physically until you create this shaking response to release energy.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds a little like woo-woo.
It does.
Right? So, but I want to touch on that.
Yeah.
So we know that the nervous system starts from the spinal cord, right? From the brain down to the spinal cord, and then that branches out into the body.
Yep.
And the major nerve roots innervate certain organs, and then those major nerve roots also innervate muscle groups, right? So we have muscle groups, organs, and the central nervous system all connected. So anything that happens to the central nervous system that could be stressful, like an emotional response or a trauma, that stress can be shared out through the organs and even to the muscular skeletal system, right? So it makes sense you can go after that from that end.
Yeah.
And so that it really does show that anything that happens to you also happens to your body, and that's shared stress through the system.
Yes.
Which is why animals, after they have a traumatic event, they do that vibrating. They literally do like a vibrating like seizure almost for like a couple minutes. And then they like literally shake off the energy from that trauma, and then they move on from it.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that I've never heard that technique before of like going after the area of the body that you're experiencing the emotion in to try and create a release.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool.
Powerful. Yeah. Cool.
Can you, like, you know, we've talked a lot about obviously your niche, you're specifically chasing people with traumas, women with trauma.
Yeah.
Can you define, like, is there specific, you know, categories of traumas that people are experiencing that fall under like an umbrella of clientele that you're looking for? Or I guess, how would you define like traumas as far as who you're seeking?
Yeah, I mean, trauma, there's kind of your big T traumas, which I think is often what people think about when they think of trauma. So like abuse, death, right? Divorce, like things of that nature. But then there's like the little T traumas, and those are some of the things that might not be as noticeable. Sometimes those are the things that, like, as a kid growing up, you didn't get, right? Like, I didn't have parents that told me they loved me. I didn't have, you know, I grew up in an authoritarian home that wasn't, I didn't have choice over my body. it was obey. And, so like some of that, the little T stuff is a bit harder to define for people, because sometimes it's some of the stuff that you didn't have growing up. And so for me, it's all. I'm not like, I only want, kind of the people with the big T trauma. All of my clients have varying, degrees of trauma, but trauma expresses itself like symptomatically very much the same, whether you have a big T trauma or a little T trauma. So a lot of the symptoms I see in the space can look pretty similar. There are different trauma responses, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's a couple extra that have been added over the years, but those are kind of the main ones. And then those just kind of are expressed in varying degrees of intensity. So those are kind of the trauma responses. But anybody with a trauma history can be expressing like those reactions in a space.
I would imagine too, even just people that don't have experience with athletics or weight training and are uncomfortable, like you said, walking into a gym, like a space like yours would be the perfect place to learn how to build confidence in that space. Sure. Whether it's rooted in like a deep trauma or not, or like a little T trauma, right? Because we all, on some level, we all were nervous walking into a gym the first time, or literally had no idea what we were doing, what a barbell was, what a dumbbell was, and so. I think too, it's just cool that that might be that's a safe space for anyone to like walk into and learn how to take care of their bodies, right? Because there's people out there that want to do that have no idea where to start, and they're nervous to like go seek help or go walk into a gym. So
I mean, I remember feeling that way even growing up, as an athlete. When I started coming back to the gym, I remember walking in, especially to a place like Lifetime, I was like so overwhelmed, didn't know where to start. For me, the loud noises were really hard. Like the dropping of a barbell was really, really tough. And I constantly found myself like totally jarred by like a sound like that, which for somebody else, that might be no big deal. But big sounds like that, still, even to this day, I find, I'm myself like just really viscerally reacting to something like that. So I think at the heart of what I'm trying to provide is a safe space, for women to come and get strong physically, and to have support in helping instill healthy lifestyles, but to also have somebody who gets it, who understands alongside with them and can help them get curious about their stories as we're in that space, who kind of know some of these like regulation, techniques to help them be able to function even better and live life better outside of, the gym space, so that they leave my space with these more positive, like healthy coping mechanisms too. So we're getting strong, we're lifting heavy things, and there's so much like benefit from that outside of just like building muscle and strength. Like obviously coming back into the body, but then it's like the things that come out, like the things that are said in the space, like even just having somebody who can help you get curious about maybe a narrative that you've been believing, or like I have a client, she says, "I'm sorry" all the time. Everything, didn't even know or notice that she constantly was saying, "I'm sorry." And so even just as simple, like, "Hey, I wonder if you realize, like that you say sorry a lot. Where do you think that comes from? Did you feel like you had to apologize a lot growing up? Or did you feel like you had to walk into a room and kind of manage, kind of the emotions and the temperature of a room? And if you couldn't, that was like somehow your fault. And so now in adulthood, you walk around apologizing for everything because you feel like you have to manage the space, or you feel too big or too much taking up space. So it's even, that's some of the cool work that happens in my space too. Just having some narrative and some trauma, like focused training, is being able to spot like narratives and story, that could be impacting, just their life outside of the gym, and just like helping them, like, "Hey, do you notice this?" Or like they say, "I suck," or "I'm stupid," or something like that. And like, who told you that? Like, who told you that? you suck or
Where's
that
that
you're
voice?
stupid. Where's that voice coming from? And so that's kind of some cognitive processing type, thinking of like, let's try and get to, because what we think is how we act, which, kind of dictates how we feel about ourselves. So it's okay. You think that, you're probably acting out in that way. Like if you think you're stupid, right, there's going to be this fear around looking stupid and you're just going to feel stupid all the time, right? And so let's try and dig and figure out like where that narrative comes from so we can actually start reframing and restoring that like false narrative, and make it positive.
Yeah, there's in my experience at least, there's so many one of the reasons, or I would say the core reason that people struggle with consistently taking care of themselves is because there's some sort of internal belief that is rooted in like guilt or shame or not seeing themselves as worthy or like loving their themselves or their bodies truly. So, people try and force themselves into losing 30 pounds right through, like we've talked about this, like we talked about like 75 hard specifically because we were talking about consistency a couple episodes ago. Right. So we can use force to, complete 75 hard, for example, right. Which can be a positive thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily a negative thing. But a lot of times what happens when we use force is that we get to the goal and then we take our foot off the gas because we haven't found a sustainable way to actually get there. And do it from a place that's rooted in like self-love or belief or desire to truly take care of ourselves. It's like, okay, I'm going to do 75 hard because I want to lose 20 pounds because I really am ashamed that I'm overweight or I feel like this is where I should be. Right. And so a lot of times the reason that we struggle with consistently just finding ways to sustainably make decisions that are healthy for us is because we have some sort of rooted belief about ourselves. So how do you help your clients? Like you were just kind of touching on kind of like pulling on the thread and helping them kind of see narratives. Is there anything that you do like in your initial like assessment or when you bring clients on to help them kind of find the root of that story or get an idea of what their history is so that you can kind of start to pull on that thread yourself from the outside?
I mean, in the initial sort of consultation, I'm asking just a lot of pointed questions about, I mean, of course, their history, like their fitness history, their health history, things like that. Honestly, I gain more information the more I work with them. I'll get some of that information in a consultation. And for my clients, they know, especially with like coming from like trauma histories, you can share as much or as little. Like if you never want to share the trauma, you don't have to, because again, I want it to be really safe. And for many of these women, they're coming in already just kind of like, can I trust you? So I find with this demographic anyway, I have to work pretty hard to build rapport, and to gain their trust so that they let me in, a little more and trust me enough so that when I'm, kind of getting curious and pointing out maybe some narratives that, could be reframed. They trust me enough to like go there. I've been with some of my clients, since I started my business, and I'm still like learning really like big, heavy things about their story. Like even just recently with some of my clients, some big things came out, and it's been a year and a half, 2 years, that I've been working with some of them. And so it takes time. I don't get the whole story in a consultation, but I can get a pretty strong idea of maybe just where we need to start, typically just from digging a little bit and asking questions and getting an idea of where they're at with how they feel about their body, with how they feel about food, just kind of where their habits are regarding all that. And even just some of the things they say about themselves that come up, just in that conversation.
Yeah.
So I kind of can have an idea of like, okay, here's where we're starting. And we'll go deeper, if they feel comfortable, to go deeper. But typically that's the case.
So you're mostly focused on the fitness aspect of it, getting them into their body, getting them moving, and then you're building relationship, and then you're using your understanding, your background of trauma and narrative and, story, like with the story that we're telling ourselves, our belief systems. And then you start to kind of, as you build relationships with them, start to kind of open that door and integrate the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I love seeing my women get stronger physically. But I think the best work and the best outcomes that I have seen is when their capacity, to carry stress, to walk through hard things, to live life, improves and expands, and that's so much of the power of, training and resistance training is growing this capacity, for life outside of the gym.
Yeah.
We're working on, being present in our body. We're building strength. We're building confidence, and we're building capacity, to go out into our lives and, and take some of that like work, that reframing back into kind of our everyday and continue, to work on that.
How do you go from, because I would imagine you have a lot of clientele where you're having to gauge your pace, right? There's maybe moments that arise where maybe there are big emotions, or you're spending time with breath work and really like breaking things down to a lower level. How do you get to a place where you as the trainer can kind of push the pace or the intensity with clients? And I mean, I'm sure it takes a lot of patience, but what is your strategy for, obviously as the trainer, as you're writing the program, there's, you hope that there's these results based on the program you've written, but there's probably a lot of instances where people are walking in and you're changing the script for the day based off how they're feeling. So I guess in that, my question is like, how do you, like I said, push the pace so that they're still getting benefit and they're still getting results from your training, but you're also able to do it at a pace that they feel comfortable?
I was just really curious about this too. Is like, that's a great question. Like, how do you manage pushing them, but also respecting their boundaries?
Like, because I guess the way I see it is like, you could really easily get into a hole where they're purely dictating what they're willing to do. Right?
I'm not going to do that.
And
I'm not
you
going
as
to do
the
that.
trainer is the one that they're paying and that they're showing up to be trained by, has to say, well, hold up. Like, no, we're actually going to do 5 rounds of 20 seconds on the assault bike today. Like there is some work that needs to be done in some sense. So I guess that's kind of where my head's at with that.
Yeah. So like, oftentimes, when I see, kind of that struggle happening and them potentially wanting to quit or even saying like, I'm done. Yeah. My first question will be, do you need a challenge from me in this moment? Like, do you need me to push you, or is your body really telling you like, I need to be done today because I'm kind of getting outside of my window of tolerance, right? Like, we have our window of tolerance, and if we're here, like, it's, I want them to leave better than I found them, right? Like, fitness should enhance our life, right?
Sure.
I don't want them leaving like totally dysregulated. And so if I kind of see that happening, it's hey, why don't we take a second and do some deep breathing? That has actually happened in the middle of a space. I see you kind of, wanting to flee, why don't we just take a minute and do some box breathing, count into 4, hold for 4, count, breathe out for 4. And just while we're kind of in our rest period, we do that. Okay, how do I find you? Like, can I push you? Can I challenge you to stick with this, right? Doing hard things builds our capacity to continue to do hard things and our resiliency. And so I want that for you. I also want to respect you, So it really is, this tough tension of like trying to gauge, like, is this a thing? Do I need to push them in this? Or are we really just at a point where we need to be done for the day? And if so, that's okay.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
It's like changing expectation.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you've said it quite a few times. Like, your goal is not to, obviously you want transformation. Obviously you want results for your clients and things like that. But I feel like you've done a really good job of presenting the results as you're able to walk out of the space and feel like you're more of a whole person who can manage the stresses of life, who can manage what's asked upon you beyond just, I got cool biceps, you know what I mean? Like, just to really make it quirky. But like, I think maybe it's just a matter of changing the perspective of expectation versus being purely outcome driven and more internal. How am I feeling? How am I doing mentally?
Right. Yeah. I think another thing that is helpful is kind of setting expectations too. Like, as I kind of present the plan to them when we're beginning our session, I always do that. Like, hey, here's what we got today, and then maybe there's a hard section of the workout. Like, hey, we're going to go into a conditioning segment that's going to be pretty tough. It's going to push your heart rate, it's going to push your body. I want to gauge like how ready we are for that right now.
Yeah.
Are you feeling pretty good? Are you feeling like you can tackle that right now? But before we even go into kind of a heavier, harder piece of the workout, I kind of even just set the expectation of like, this is what's coming, it's going to be hard, and you can do hard things, you've proven you can do hard things. You continue to do hard things. You can do this. I believe you can, but I want you to know it's going to be hard. And so some of that is going to be on you, to kind of bear down and push through it. But yeah, and most of the time they are up to the task, which is awesome, and I'm progressing them to that point, right? So it's like we're not just going in, absolutely. Right? Like hard, but
it's hard, but it's maybe only a little bit harder than what you've done before, or
totally.
or it's as hard as something you've done before. It's like you can handle this, like you're safe here,
right?
Yeah.
But it is very situational. Like, I just had one of my clients this last week. Her mom lives with her, and her mom just had a heart attack, and she's got some big, like, genetically hard things in her, like, family history. And so in our workout, we were doing a conditioning segment. Her heart rate is getting up, and then I saw her, like, anxiety start to climb, and she was like, I'm done. And I gave her a second. Like, she kind of walked up,
There's like fear surrounding maybe family health history and what that's going to do for her if she pushes.
Exactly.
Kind of, gotcha.
Yeah. And so I let her just kind of have a moment and, walk up to the side, breathe a little bit. And I was like, are you done because your body's just telling you you're done? Or is it because your heart rate started to, get high, and then your anxiety started to get high because you're thinking about, what just happened with your mom? You're worried about your heart, And she was like, yeah. So again, it just kind of goes back to story and knowing our clients, like knowing what's going on in their personal lives and what they're bringing into our space. And again, that happens as we build rapport, and they're sharing. And so I'm constantly, like, kind of tucking those things away to keep in mind for, when I'm seeing things like this, this go on. And so, we were able to name that. But, I love that there's so much, like, talk around trauma and mental health right now. But a lot of it is like, name your truth, right? Like, name your trauma. And there isn't as much around, but also we have to take action, towards that. It's not just name your trauma. It's also like, we have to put things in place to actually process our trauma and move through our trauma, and so, I get to kind of help my women in my space, not just name the hard thing, but then, okay, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of, like, identifying with instead of, like, kind of confusing, like, naming and seeing, like, naming and blaming, and then being able to, like, see that for what it is and then take action on it.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between doing that and then like naming it and being like, oh, that's me. Like that's what I am.
Yes.
And that's just what I am.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing I can do about it, I guess.
Right.
It's very like victimhood mentality, right? That's not serving anyone. It keeps them in this cycle of just like, yeah, you know, there's good therapists out there. There's great, amazing therapists out there. And then there's bad therapists out there that just like keep people stuck in a story.
Yeah.
And then it keeps them coming back and it keeps them in a victimhood spot. Right.
Right.
But that's really cool that you're using that to push people and say like, we need to, you know, I understand that you got anxious because your heart rate was coming up and that's attached to a story, but we need to work on getting your heart rate up and reminding yourself that that's okay. And that feeling, even though it feels uncomfortable, you can handle that and your nervous system can handle that capacity.
Yes. And that's actually healthy for your heart, right? Like we're increasing your heart health and your endurance. And actually this is going to help regulate your central nervous system, right? It feels hard in the moment, but it's actually going to have so much benefit for you.
Yeah, once you bounce back from this stress, you're actually going to be more regulated on a regular basis.
Yeah, right. And that was something we actually got to talk about. We didn't jump back into the work because she truly was just kind of done, but then it was like, it was naming it, but then it was kind of speaking that truth over her. So like next time we come in and you start to feel that, you can recognize it for what it is, right? Because now she'll be aware of it. Now she'll recognize like, oh, my heart rate's getting up. I'm getting nervous because of this event because it's stored in the body, right? But how am I going to move that out of the body by like reframing? The brain is so smart. The brain actually will heal and we can retrain our brain and our bodies, you know, to live, think differently.
Yes.
Than you know, the event that happened to us.
It's the same like tool we use as coaches. Like we're teaching someone how to squat. Yeah. And we have to get them to do multiple repetitions over time with good technique to drive home that technique. Yeah. Right. So we're facilitating a certain pattern in the nervous system. Yep. Right. And then that same thing happens with thoughts, with stories, with mental framing, where we have the same like pathway facilitated, and every time it's triggered, then it just like runs its own like automatic course. Yeah. And we just think that it's who we are, it's a part of, you know, what reality is. Like it's unchangeable, but we can take control once we start to recognize it. Then we can see it, flip it, and start to do that repeatedly until we inhibit that pattern and we start to facilitate a new one that serves us better.
That's right. Yeah. It's disrupting the narrative. Yes. Disrupting the tape and changing it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much like uncertainty in the unknown, like in anything in life. I feel like fitness is one of the most like clear as day examples of that. Like, you know, if someone is fit, is unhealthy, hasn't stepped foot in a gym space, everything about that is anxiety filled because it's like, I don't know this. And it's almost like our job is to like microdose it enough over and over and over and over until you get a year down the road and you can say, hey, a year ago, you were not doing this. And this is what you felt fear about. This is what you felt anxiety about. Look at what you did now. Like it's so powerful what we get to do. I had a client who, when he started with me, and this is more what his physical capabilities, but he came in and we were doing like a split squat, and it was like setting him up with like a pad about 12 inches high under his knee, holding on to TRX bands for dear life because he couldn't, do it. Yeah. And I just took a video of him the other day, and he was doing 3 sets of 12 reps of walking lunges. And it's like in a span of like a year's time, but it's like, this is the belief that we get to instill in people, and they don't even recognize it. And sometimes it's up to us to be like, look at what you just did. Yeah. Like celebrate yourself for that. Like you're hung up so much on this lofty outcome goal that you're overlooking what journey you've been on over the course of the year. And I don't know, it's just really powerful. And I think that's just something awesome that as trainers we can resonate in, that we get to do for people. So
yeah, that's really cool.
So Aimee, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a business owner, you're a busy person, and yet you still choose to care for yourself physically, mentally, and pursue your health in a really exploratory way. What are some things that you've done to establish like those rhythms in your life, despite, a lot of the barriers that I think a lot of us use as excuses to not do those things.
Yeah. I think, oftentimes people kind of see like where I'm at now, where you're at now, right? Like we have all these healthy rhythms in place, like we're fit, right? Like we have these strong bodies. This took years, right, to develop, right? Stacking healthy habits, one on top of another over time. And so, for me, I find it helpful. I'm really like system oriented and minded. I put everything in my calendar. And so like my kids are a little older now. Like my oldest is going to be a freshman in high school, which is so crazy. And then my youngest is going into 4th grade. But when they were babies, I invested into a gym membership where I could put them into childcare so that I could have some time to myself. Now I started kind of working out later in the day. I realized like, oh, this isn't my best time like for me to work out. And so then I kind of shifted and started working out before work. I got into the habit of waking up early and went in before work. And now, because my life is very full at this point with, kids' schedules, I'm in school too, myself running the business. Like I kind of live by my schedule. And so everything literally from like my meals to my workouts goes into my calendar. And I put all the most important things in first, the things that I need to prioritize. Now, I've learned, like I used to be very rigid, and if my plan kind of fell apart, that was like, now I know I have a mentor and he's kind of like a father figure in my life. He always says, Aimee, just let life happen, and that's so good for me because that was so hard for me for so long. But now I hold my plan loosely. However, all the important things still go into my calendar before the week starts, so because I know my week is going to be full, with all the things I have to do, I put all those have-tos and those important things into my day. And then I kind of like look ahead and plan ahead. Like, okay, if something happens here, I can move this here, So I really live by my calendar and have found that is a great way to set myself up for success. Meal planning, getting ahead of thinking about what I'm going to be eating throughout the week. Just even a basic idea, of what do I have available? Do I need to go shopping? I used to be a lot more like meal prep, like get everything ready for the week. Now I kind of can move on the fly, but I used to be very like meal prep oriented, and that was before my week started. But yeah, every week my husband and I sit down, we look at our calendar, and I throw everything in, literally from like my showers to my meals to my workouts are all in my schedule so that everything's there. I see it. I know when it's happening. I kind of know what's coming in my week and where, if something happens, I can shift things around to make sure I'm still caring for myself. I also nowadays live from a place of rest. I see rest and recovery as so important. So I schedule in my rest days. I have hobbies, like things that I'm doing just me for fun, whether it's me by myself or with my friends, like hiking. I love to hike. I love to read. I love to paddleboard. So I'm building those things into my schedule too. My kids, now they're on summer break, but when they were in school, okay, Thursday I'm off. I'm going paddleboarding with my friend, because that is restorative to me. That's filling to me. And so that's like an active rest day for me. So yeah, I'm building these things into my life and making sure that the things that are important to me, taking care of my health are built into that too. So I don't miss it.
So good.
Really, yeah, great answer. And, it's discipline, right? Like the question was, how do you balance like having a successful business and having a family and staying in shape and taking care of yourself and making sure that you're enjoying life so that you have the energy to share with your family and your clients. And it's like, I'm just disciplined about it. I think ahead of time and I create a plan and then I execute that. Right. It's like, it's great just to hear the reinforcement in that. But like, honestly, like if you're someone listening to this, there's no like magic pill to that, right? Like there's no magic pill there. It's like, you got to be consistent over time and and keep showing up. Like
Yes.
have a
Yeah.
plan, set it in place. If it's not working, reassess,
Yes.
right? And then execution. It's like actually getting up and doing the thing every day.
Right.
So
Yeah. Oftentimes I don't feel motivated, especially lately, because I'm actually tired. You know,
Preach it.
like my schedule is full. In fact, like you're talking about, like if it's not working, change it. For the last year, I had one day off every week, and I started feeling the weight of that because my one day off actually turned into clean, run errands, go to appointments. So I didn't actually really get a day to just like rest, and that was really starting to wear on me. And so just at the beginning of this month, I actually shifted my schedule. So I went from training clients 4 days a week to kind of squeezing them in and saying, you know what, I'm going to train clients Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You know, I'm going to shove them all into this time frame because I know I'm going to be busy on the weekend. I know, you know, I have school, I have kids schedules. So now that's going to give me Tuesday, Thursday off. So now I have 2 days off. I have one day where, I can catch up on all the things I have to catch up on. And then I have one day where I can go have fun, you know,
which is,
because that's important.
Yeah, so important for your health.
Yeah.
To like go do something that like fills you up so that you can take that energy again and do your week.
Yeah.
You have family, you have clients that you're attending to. Like you can't fill them up. You can't be a positive influence for them if you're not feeling great, right? So
Right.
yeah, very
but
cool.
it's okay if things have to change.
Yes.
You know, like I think in the past I would have said like, man, I'm failing at this. Like, what is the issue? No, it's like, it's really like, I just need to change things because this isn't working for me, and that's actually okay. And it has been so much better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, not everything has to be so black and white.
Yeah.
And I like that you said, like, this is a body of work over years and years and years. So many people will take, you know, whether it's looking at Instagram, whether it's seeing trainers, whatever it may be, it's like, you know, how do I go from where I'm at now to that? And it's like, it's not a magic pill.
Yeah.
It's not some like secret thing you're just going to magically figure out. It's like, no, this took 15 years of my life to be disciplined, to follow the plan, to see it through, and to adapt it as I needed to, just as you guys stated. So let that be encouragement. It's like the listener of like, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just, like we talked about, you just have to take action, like just commit to something. And I like that you noted too, like one of the things I like to mention just as someone who's married and has kids is like a lot of us who have like significant others and obligations, like we let those things be our no without actually like communicating it up front, you know? It's like, oh, I couldn't, I don't know, I can't go to the gym because, you know, my husband or my wife or whatever that looks like, you know, I just don't want to bother them, or I don't want to be a stick in the mud, or maybe we've got this thing to do. And I love that you sit down with George and you guys have that moment to assess your week and say, hey, these are my priorities.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to get done. How do you feel about that? And there's this ebb and flow between the two of you so that you can do the things that you love to do and that you prioritize. And you've communicated that, and that's not a barrier for you. So I think that's a really powerful tool.
Yeah. Excuses are always going to be there, right? Like we'll always have room to make excuses for things, but at some point we have to choose. Like I say, freedom is a choice, right? Freedom is actually a choice I make. And so if I want more freedom in my life, if I want more freedom in my health, if I want more, you know, time freedom, if I want all, like I have to actually make the choice to make that happen. It's not just going to happen. And I can make all the excuses in the world. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm fortunate. I have like a super supportive spouse, you know, and so he cheers me on in all my endeavors in my health. He's super supportive that like, I believe investing into our health has to be like top priority. And like we're on the same page. So I know that that's not everybody's story. Yeah. And I am blessed that is mine.
Sure.
You know? But excuses are always going to be there. And at some point we just have to choose. We have to choose us. Like, we have to choose to put, if I am not putting myself kind of first, and I'm not taking care of myself, I actually can't be the best mom. I can't be the best wife. You've probably heard, you can't pour out of an empty cup. If I'm actually not working on filling myself up and doing the things that I need to do to care for me, my family, the people that mean the most to me are actually going to get the worst of me, because I am pouring my best into like my work, into my school. And then it's like, if I'm not being mindful and intentional and taking action to take care of me, then it's like I'm so drained and I'm so tired at the end of the day that I actually can't be present, and I can't show up in the way that I want to for my family. And I want them to actually get the best of me. So I have to be intentional about making sure I'm taking care of me so that they get that from me.
Yeah.
I love that. That's and it's rooted in a belief that what's good for me, what's good for me is good for the people around me.
Yeah.
Right. And like you were just touching on, is like, that's ultimately, that comes back to purpose. Right. And that's what this podcast is about. It's like what the conversations we love having is like, okay, we're focusing on fitness, we're focusing on health, but it's tied to the purpose.
Yeah.
Right. We focus on those things so that we can take care of ourselves, so that we can have the energy to show up in our life, take care of the people that we love, and move with purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also want my kids to see that example. You know, like they come out into the garage when I'm working out, you know, they're out there with me. I want them to see these things, so that just becomes like the norm for them. Like they know that they're valuable enough to take care, care of them. And so they learn to do that. Right. And so even part of why I'm leading the way at that, like the leader gets better, everybody around them gets better, right? Like my kids are going to be better because they're seeing a good example of what it looks like to care, care for yourself. And so they will follow, hopefully, prayerfully, to some degree.
That's like
in
one of my greatest joys is like this morning it happened. I'm like getting a workout in my garage gym as well. And my son's just sitting on the floor, like playing with his trucks and just, Dad, look at this. Dad, play with me. Dad, it's like, dude, it's so like fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't ever want to be in a spot where I'm like forcing the things I enjoy and all that stuff like on my kids. But it's like you said, it's like if they're in the space and they're being exposed to that. I mean, I know for myself, like the reason I stuck with fitness and appreciate fitness the way I do is because of seeing my dad exemplify that. Like we used to go to the gym together. I saw him like making his protein shakes and like he cared about it. And that was the connection that we had, is like, I played sports. I'm fit also, and this is something we do together. And because of that, it's like, that's a huge reason why I'm on my current path. So yeah, it's like, you never know. It's just exposure, and it's giving them a safe place to experience that. So that's cool.
Good.
That example will ripple out.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Thank you so much, Aimee.
Yeah.
You have anything else, Brandon, that
where can
about?
like listeners find you is kind of what I want to hit on for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, the main space I kind of hang out is Instagram. So I'm at Aimee, AMIEEK fit on Instagram. So yeah, come give me a follow, reach out, say hi. I would love to connect with you.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Yeah, Aimee, thank you so much. I think you share a powerful mission and message, and it's just really amazing to hear what you're doing. So
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
Let's go.